Hey guys, welcome to another video. Oh, I think that this is probably like, I'm not even kidding, my 20th time filming this intro. It's kind of hard to film because there's a lot of things going on in my mind right now. But first of all, what I want to say is today I'm going to be coming forth with a story that I had, or a personal experience, and I think that it took me a really long time to even come up to this point to be vocal about things with you guys. For those of you guys who know and watch my rated key videos, or even just like my idol insider videos, know that I try to be vocal as much as possible and give you guys information and just inform you guys on things that happen in the K-pop industry. But I think that when it comes to my own personal experiences, I have trouble kind of opening up, and that is because when I was embedded in just like the K-pop industry, it really kind of was hard to be vocal about it or say things that I felt, you know. I always had to be careful of the things I said, be careful of the things I talked about, be careful of the things that I changed into like this person where I was just super paranoid, and like I was always like, and yeah. I think that it's still embedded in me, which is a trait that I personally don't really like, because I feel like I have trouble opening up to people or like trusting people in a way. But I'm ready today to kind of talk about just something that had happened. I'm not trying to like freak you guys out or anything. And also I want to talk about an ongoing situation that is happening just in our society today, and it makes me think, are we even in 2020, because of how little change there has been within our society. And I want to kind of inform you guys on just Black Lives Matter, and I'm pretty sure many of you guys have already heard about it, but we really need to stop racism and violence. It has gone like overhand, and I think that we really need to stand up and make a change, stand together, be vocal about it, do anything that we can to be active in this movement and to change everything that's going on. And I really hope that you guys can educate yourselves, donate, or sign petitions, and just really be aware of the matter. I'm going to be linking down links below for those of you guys who want to kind of look into everything. And yeah, let's get started with the video. So I'm going to be kind of talking about just like my first ever experience that I had, just because I feel like I need to kind of tell like side stories, and also just a little bit like a backside to leading on to the story, and maybe some characteristics that I saw beforehand. So the first time and the first day I ever went into training, we were in a practice room, and I remember I was the last member to join the group. So the members were all living in a dorm together. 4 members were already living in a dorm together. They have already been teamworked out. They have been practicing together and everything. I didn't really know much about the members, I didn't know much about the manager, I didn't really know much about the company, and yeah, so because it was my first day. So I remember as soon as I went into the practice room, one of my members was like, "Oh my gosh, dude, our manager just came to our house and is washing our blankets. Like, he just sent us a text, like a kakao." And then everyone was like, what the heck? Like, he came into our dorm? And I remember like everybody was like disgusted and freaked out and creeped out at the same time. And in my head I was just thinking, yo, is it a girl manager or a boy manager? Because I never had any info on the gender of the manager. Because if it was a girl manager, then it wouldn't be as creepy to me, because even though they did invade the privacy, anything that's in like a girl's dorm, either that's like a bra laying around or some like panties or something, it's not going to be like weird, you know what I'm talking about. And I just remember they were like, "Oh my god, like da 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 oppa, like da 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 da, like oh my god, like I'm gonna tell like the CEO that da 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 oppa came into the dorm and just like washed our like blankets and stuff." So figured out he was a guy, and I was like, oh dude, that's kind of creepy. I remember like 2 hours later, while we were practicing, the manager came in to greet himself because it was my first time seeing, and he kind of just said it like casually, like he's like, oh yeah guys, like I said in the kakao before, I washed the blankets because since you know, Subin is new, I kind of wanted to like wash her blankets as well while I was washing her blanket for her bed and stuff. And all the members were like, dude, why did you do that? Like, you could have at least asked us beforehand, or like told us that you were going to be cleaning the dorm beforehand so that we could have at least cleaned the dorm, or like, you know or be aware that you were going to be coming in the dorm. And he's like, oh, da 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 da. And in my head, I was just like, dude, I wonder what was like in the dorm, like what was laying around, you know? I'm just like, because like we're girls too, you know what I'm talking about? Like if girls are just living with girls, like we don't really need to think about like where we're like leaving our bra, or like, you know, leaving something out in the open. So I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, that's kind of like creepy. And that's like the first ever vibe that I got from him, was like, okay, he has the ability to invade privacy and I should be careful of that. But as time passed on, like months passed on, I didn't really get any like red flags or like warnings or just anything like too suspicious or like weird. So I remember like that just kind of like went behind my head and nothing really mattered. So now we're going to be going into the real kind of situation of how everything happened. So we had a dorm, and I think that we were living there for like around 4 months, 5-6 months, and the contract for the dorm was over, so we had to move out and find a new place. And I remember it just took a long time, or like the transition wasn't smooth. Originally in Korea, how you would move is from one place to another and have it on the same moving day, but the transition wasn't as smooth. So I remember we couldn't find a house in time, and also they were deciding where to get the new dorm. So it was around like 3 weeks we had to stay at home. So what would happen is after the practice is over around like 10 p.m. That is the time where the manager would drop each and every one of us off at home. So what would happen is, you know, after 10 p.m. we would all get in the car, he would drop one member off, one member off, one member off, one member off, and then one member off, and then he would proceed to going home. Mind you, all of the members' houses were super far, like literally 30 minutes away from each other. Like they were very all separated around Seoul. And I remember I was always the last one to go home. Ironic enough though, because my house was pretty much the closest from the practice room. It was literally like 15 minutes, so I don't know why I always got dropped off last. But if I think about it now, I wasn't really vocal about even that in general because I was the youngest member in the group. So for me, I would always just be like, okay, yeah, like all the unnies go home first, you know, I don't mind going home a little bit later. And yeah, so I just remember like sometimes he would drop me off a little bit like earlier first, but usually I was always the last member to be dropped off, ironic enough. And I remember it was just like one normal day. We ended practice at 10 and all the members were already dropped off, and by the time the last member was getting out the car, I proceeded to go to the front of the seat because I have car sickness. So I kind of wanted to show you guys, or like talk about the arrangement of how the members sat in the car, or how, you know, it was between us. It was always going to be the manager driving and then a member on this passenger seat, and then 2 members behind, and then 2 members at the 3rd row. I was always at the 3rd row. So by 2 hours, and by me being the last person to go home, I always got car sick all the time. I remember every time I came home, I was like, oh, I don't feel good, I feel nauseous, because like I always got car sickness because I was the last member and I was in the back seat, you know, the longest. So I remember one day when all the members were dropped off and the 4th member was dropped off and there was only me left, I proceeded to go to the passenger seat, and I wanted to kind of just charge my phone, you know, turn on the music and not get car sick. So it's usually like, for me, I never really got to sit in the front seat unless it was only me doing a schedule by myself. So proceeded to go to the front seat, you know, like nothing happened, like it's fine. Turned on like some good vibing music, was vibing, and then remember we were at a stoplight, and by that time I was just looking through the music. I already like had like a playlist and everything, so I just put my phone down and I was just looking out the window, and literally he proceeded to like grab my hand, and did grab my hand. So I remember like I was kind of like out of it because I wasn't like paying attention, you know, like I said, like I was just kind of like not giving a F. And he just kind of came in and held my hand, and I was like, oh dude, that's kind of weird. What do I do? Oh my god, huh? What's going on? Huh? And I was freaking out. Like in my head, I was like, what am I supposed to do? What do I say? Do I like just kind of like do that? Or I don't know. Even thinking about it now, it kind of just gets me flustered, because I know for a lot of people, you just be like, yo, you should have just kind of been like, oh, what the heck are you doing? But in the moment and in the situation, when you're in that type of situation, you sometimes just kind of freeze up because you're thinking about what to do because you weren't expecting something to happen. And I could vouch for that 100% because I literally was frozen. I was like, what do I do? And like he held my hand for like around like 30 seconds, and I was like, okay, you know what? And then I kind of snapped back into it, and I remember I was like, all right, just pretend like nothing happened, like touch your phone, you know, like. So the whole time I remember on the way back I was just like holding my phone and like just trying to get by the time till I got home. And to this day, I remember like that was probably the awkwardest car ride I ever had in my life. Like, kid you not, because I was like, so many thoughts were going into my head. Like, you know, by the time I got home, I was just in my room and I was like, what do I do? Am I gonna like tell the company? Am I gonna confront my manager like why he did that? Am I gonna tell like my members? Like, what am I supposed to do in this type of situation? And I remember the conclusion that I had was, you know what, forget about it, act like nothing happened. You know, if you don't say anything, nobody will know that happened, and you know, it won't be like a big commotion. And something that I regret doing because I wasn't vocal about it, you know. And I think that in that moment I was just very scared to be vocal about anything, because I really didn't know what the manners of Korea was, you know, the manners that I needed to follow to become an idol, if I'm just supposed to, you know, just let that shit have happened to me. But I was just like, you know what, I think that that's the best option. And in that moment, in that time, that is what I thought was best. And I remember, obviously it was awkward. Like, there was definitely like me putting an invisible wall up when it was like with that manager, and I was like, okay, you know what, like super awkward, I'm just gonna be business, like, you know, like just business, act like nothing happened. And I remember we're still having to be dropped off home. So since I was still the last member to go home, I proceeded to sit in the second row, not the passenger seat, because I felt like if I was sitting in the passenger seat, he would do that again. And I just remember I kept on sitting in the second row and not behind him, like on just this side, like across from him, so that if anything were to happen to me, I would be able to visually see it coming at me. And yeah, but I remember like a week passed by, and I was like, okay, you know what, like it's all cool, we good, you know, like. But I remember one time we were going, and then he's like, oh yeah, I remember like a week ago, you know, like kind of held your hand. He's like, what you feel? And I was like, what? Like this dude literally asking me like the audacity, do you know what I'm talking about? And I was like, weird, awkward, like, you know, it's like, it was weird, like. And then he was like, oh, like that's it, you didn't feel anything else? And I was like, yeah, I didn't feel anything else. And that was me being like sticking up to myself. Like, I remember like after I said that, I was like, good job, you know, because it's like, it's scary, because like at that time and moment I knew that he had like intentions of like, you know, and like feelings, which is like so freaking weird. And like till this day, like the fact that he asked me that, he could have honestly known in the situation and after the situation that I was uncomfortable and either apologize or, you know, act like nothing happened like I did, you know, and like it would have just been cool. But the fact that he had the audacity to ask me how I felt in the situation, like, do you not get the clues that I was uncomfortable and like that I'm avoiding you? I think that in the situation, the reason why I wasn't vocal about it, even to the company or to the members or to anybody, was because I was young. I was freaking like 19. I call that young because I feel like that is when you're just going into the adult world. You're learning about new things, you're experiencing new things, you're meeting new people, and you are making judgments by yourself. So I feel like for me, I was always very careful because I didn't really know like the customs, the morals of just like the industry or even the Korean like mannerisms. And I was like, you know what, like, you're young, like, you can't do that to older people, elderly people. And I don't know, like, in the moment, I was just scared. And I think that that feeling of being scared and not being vocal about it was scary because I think that he knew that I couldn't be vocal about it. He came at me because he knew that I wasn't going to be able to tell higher up people, like my CEO or like my members or anything. He knew that for me, I was going to be the person thinking and just forgetting about it and like thinking to myself and just leaving it at that. I think that's the part that is so manipulative in a way, that he knew I wasn't going to be able to say anything, and is the reason why he did it and the reason why he asked too. You know what I'm talking about? If I think about the situation now, there would have been so many different ways I would have handled the situation, but you know, in a way I put it onto myself too for not being vocal about it. And I think that that is the reason why I was always so scared to be vocal about certain things, because I didn't know how other people would handle, you know, what I said. So I remember yeah, I didn't really tell anybody, and you know, like a couple months later, like the manager got fired for different reasons, but he would contact me like separately, like all the time, like, hey, how are you doing, you know what, let's meet, let's get a coffee. And in my head I'm just like, dude, you're not my manager anymore, I don't even need to talk to you, and I don't need to even be in contact with you, you know, like I'm good. And like he would always be like, oh yeah, hey, like, you know, I know this like PD name, and like I know this writer, like come out for a coffee, and like, you know, like I'll like tell you more about the show, like he was trying to help me, you know, when I knew that that wasn't the situation. But don't worry guys, I never ever met him afterwards or, you know, like proceeded to even keep in contact. I'll just be like, okay, yeah, cool. So for me, I would just put like a wall up in front of it because I was just so disgusted. But yeah, I think that is something that I wanted to say, and yeah. Can't believe I said that. Kind of feels good. Kind of feels really good that I could finally say that, or say what happened. But yeah, I feel like for some people listening to this story, they might be like, oh, it wasn't nothing, like, but for me, and in that time and in that moment and even now, it is something that changed me a lot. And it was honestly a really awkward and kind of like confusing moment for me, especially like in my idol days, because I didn't really have a judgment on what to do. But I remember each and every time after that, I would probably refrain from sitting in the passenger seat either way, because I was just like, dude, I don't want to experience that again. But that is a story, and that is the story that I kind of want to talk to you guys about. Never be scared to stand up for yourself. And I think that for me too, like I always have regrets, but I think that even through that experience I feel like even through that experience I learned so much, and just how I can better myself in situations like that, and not to be in panic or not to freak out or not to just like freeze up. So I think that that is something that I learned. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to be more vocal about it, and I think that since I did open up, probably one of the biggest things that I was afraid of, or even just like sharing like personal things, I can become more open to you guys about other things in Idol Insider or Rated K, or just things in my videos. And I hope you guys enjoyed this little talk, and yeah, I would really like to hear more things you guys want videos of. And yeah, deuces, bye.